Hello everyone and welcome on into another tier list video. Today we're going to be tier listing the entire Fast and Furious movie franchise. We're going to be going in timeline order. I already put Fast and Furious Spy Racers and didn't watch because I didn't watch. I don't know what it is. I didn't care about it. But starting things off with the Fast and the Furious, the classic, the OG, top tier early 2000s cinema. The cars in this movie are pretty iconic. That 1994 Toyota Supra Mark IV is a beautiful piece of machinery. Paul Walker is one of the main players in this franchise as Brian O'Connor, Vin Diesel as Dominic Toretto, Michelle Rodriguez as Letty, lots of heavy hitters. A quote that I really like from this movie is when Vin Diesel says, "Granny shifting, not double clutching like you should." Come on, that's great dialogue. The street racing scenes are some of the best in this franchise, the first of family barbecues. They got a lot right with this one. This is an S tier. Up next is a short film in between the first and second film. It's called Too Fast, Too Furious Turbocharged Prelude. All this does is explain how Brian got to Miami and bought his iconic gray and blue Nissan Skyline GTR R34. It's a C tier. Shifting into the next film is Too Fast, Too Furious. The only redeeming things this movie has is the GTR, the introduction of Suki, Roman, and Tej, and the line where Brian says, "Pockets ain't empty, cuz." The dialogue in these movies are great. This one kind of sucks. It's a fun movie to throw on every now and then. It's an F tier, but in a fun way. The next movie is a film that most people don't know is a part of the Fast universe. It's an indie film called Better Luck Tomorrow, directed by Justin Lin. He directed quite a few of these movies, actually. I don't want to spoil too much of it. It has the introduction of Han, who's one of the best characters in all 12 movies. He isn't in the movie much, but when he is, he steals every scene. One of the other characters in this film also shows up in future movies as a small background character. This is an S tier. Moving on to another short film in the series, Los Bandereros. This is a 20-minute short film directed by Vin Diesel. It takes place in between Better Luck Tomorrow and Fast and Furious. It does some heavy story lifting. It explains how Han met Dom and his crew. It also answers the cliffhanger credit scene from the original film. This is a low B tier. Next, we have Fast and Furious. This was a reboot of sorts in the franchise after Tokyo Drift bombed at the box office. We'll get to Tokyo Drift in a minute. This released in 2009 and it was a part of the streak that was directed by Justin Lin. This film is where they kick it into overdrive and physics just kind of goes out the window. Letty's death is the first of many in the Fast family. The introduction of Gal Gadot as Giselle is pretty cool. The 2007 Porsche Cayman Tech Art GT Sport that she drives is a really nice car. This movie isn't my favorite, but it has one of my favorite endings because it goes right into Fast 5. This is a B tier. Quick side note, from this point on, movies 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 all have director's cuts of each individual film. When I talk about them, I will be referring and ranking specifically the director's cuts because they are superior versions of each film. That being said, Fast 5 is the peak of the franchise. Hands down, the best one. The action is filmed really well, lots of cool cars that they use in this one. Brian's blue Porsche 996 GT3 RS is incredible. The gray 2010 Nissan GTR R35 at the end of the film is really nice too. The bank heist is one of the coolest things they do in these movies. This film is also the introduction of The Rock as Luke Hobbs. It's a big ensemble film. It brings together the cast of all the movies prior, which is really fun to see. The family element is very heavily present in the storyline. The character dynamics are really well written. The Rock and Vin Diesel fight in a garage. The credit scene is really fun as well. This is an S tier. Fast and Furious 6 is one of those movies that I enjoy, but there's a lot of moving parts. It continues the ensemble cast, which kind of becomes the trend for the rest of this franchise, except for one movie. The plot of this film revolves around Dom finding out that Letty is still alive and she's working for a guy named Owen Shaw. He's a pretty fun villain. The Shaw family becomes pretty important after this installment. I will say this movie has some great cars during the tank chase scene on the bridge. A 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona with a maroon color a blue 1970 Ford Escort Mark I, a white 1969 Ford Mustang Fastback. The Ford cars are elite in this movie, surprisingly. Han and Roman get their asses kicked by a ninja. He's not actually a ninja, but it's still kind of funny. Let's not forget, this film has the longest runway in cinema. That's been a running joke from fans from this franchise for a long time. It really is one of the longest runways to ever exist in a movie. Giselle's death scene for the longest time was one of the actual permanent deaths in the franchise. We'll get to that a little later. The credit scene introduces one of the best antagonists in the series, Jason Statham playing Deckard Shaw. This is an A tier. Next is a fan favorite, not my favorite, but most fans like it, The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. This film explains how Han ended up in Tokyo after all these years. This movie also takes place at the same time as Furious 7. Han mentors this kid named Sean to learn how to drift. There's a guy named Twinkie that owns a Hulk car. Han's 1997 orange and black Mazda RX-7 is one of my favorite cars in the entire series. Sadly, this film does have Han's death scene. After that, the movie kind of falls flat for me until Dom shows up towards the end. This is a C tier. Another certified classic, Furious 7. This was the last film that Paul Walker filmed before his untimely death in 2013. The film was released in 2015 after they had Paul's brothers help finish filming his scenes. I personally think that this should have been the end of it all. I enjoy everything that has come after, but this has such a good ending that they really could have stopped here. The plot of this film revolves heavily around Deckard Shaw getting revenge on the Toretto family for what they did to Owen. It becomes a very personal story between Dom, Deckard, and Brian. Kurt Russell shows up as well. His character's kind of fun. The Rock gets sidelined, which is fine. We see Han's death scene again. Sean and Twinkie make some really cool cameos. The cars are pretty great. Letty's green and black 2011 Dodge Challenger SRT is iconic. Dom's all-silver 1968 Dodge Charger RT might be one of my favorite cars that he drives. This film does a pretty good job with the action, the car scenes, the family. It was also the last of the Justin Lin trilogy. The end of the film is an emotional roller coaster that gets me every time. This is S tier cinema. Up next is The Fate of the Furious, released in 2017 and directed by F. Gary Gray. He also made the Straight Outta Compton biopic about the NWA. He carries a lot of technical things over from the biopic to Fast and Furious in terms of the scale of both movies. I know they have nothing to do with each other, but if you ever watched both films back to back, you can see what I'm talking about. The plot of this one is about the antagonist named Cypher. She essentially blackmails Dom into working for her because she kidnapped his baby. There is one car that I really like in this one, and it's Dom's black 1971 Plymouth GTX. It has quite a bit of screen time when they get to New York City. There's another major death scene, which is a pretty emotional moment. So far, it's been one of the only death scenes that hasn't been undone. The Fast family, these movies get ridiculous. The Fast family ends up fighting a nuclear-powered submarine. The Rock and Vin Diesel had beef while filming this one. I personally think it was a marketing ploy for the film. Maybe it wasn't, who really knows? I think it hurt the film a tiny bit. They have maybe 2 scenes together throughout the entire movie. It's kind of goofy. Deckard Shaw comes back as well. He ends up joining the Fast family. Owen Shaw has a really cool return and a quick little cameo. It's another A tier. Next, we have Hobbs and Shaw. This was a fun spin-off that had some pretty great character moments and big action set pieces. Idris Elba as the villain was refreshing. Vanessa Kirby was a great addition to the franchise. I hope we see her again in Fast X Part 2. So far, a lot of these characters from this movie haven't shown back up again. The fight scene at the end is a really well-filmed scene from a technical perspective. Overall, a solid action film that was directed by a stuntman. High B tier. The next film was The Return of Justin Lin in the director's chair. F9 came out in 2021. This film gives us a lot of backstory about Dom and his brother Jacob, played by John Cena. I enjoy his addition to the franchise. It sounds really crazy, but it works. I kind of wish they introduced him in an earlier film, but it all makes sense. Sean and Twinkie joined the team again as well. Always love to see them. There's the return of Han, which is a huge part of the plot. I think Justin Lin handled the return of the character that he created pretty well. He doesn't just come back for shits and giggles. I do wish they didn't spoil it in the trailer and promotional stuff, but it sold the tickets, it got people in seats. They also released a new version of the Toyota Supra for this movie. It has that classic orange color with black stripes. The colorway is actually a reference to Han's Mazda RX-7 from Tokyo Drift. I think that's pretty baller. Overall, it's a fun film. They go to space, and it makes sense in terms of the plot. It's not just they go to space to go to space. I really like how it ends as well. They're all sitting down for a family barbecue, and you hear the engine of that iconic Nissan GTR, and it pulls up into the driveway. I like that they still include Brian as a character. I do wish we saw a footstep out of the door or something of the sort. Maybe not his face, but just the door of the car open and he steps out. The credit scene is pretty cool. Han and Deckard finally meet face to face. High A tier. Finishing things off here, we have Fast X Part 1. I really like this one because the plot of the film ties back heavily to Fast 5. Jason Momoa as the villain is pretty great. The action scenes are really fun to see. There are quite a few set pieces because this is part one of the finale of the series, so they do a lot of crazy stuff. They bring it back to the simplicity of street racing while also juggling the elements of the plot tying back to Fast 5 pretty well. There's a character that comes back that I wasn't really a fan of, but the rest of the film is pretty solid. I'm interested to see where they go from here and finish the franchise. The Rock finally comes back in the end credit scene, so hopefully they'll explain what he was doing this whole time. Not too many iconic cars in this one, but the cliffhanger was pretty crazy. This is an S tier. I'm hoping for Fast X Part 2 they do an endgame scene where every important character pulls up in an iconic car. I know I've said I'm not a fan of that type of storytelling, but it's bonkers. I feel like that's the direction that this franchise is headed in. Just the natural evolution of how it's going to end. But this is our Fast and Furious tier list. I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see next. As always, have a good one.